Okay, guys, trying to give you resources this week so you can get your paper looking good, and I'm going to use this sample paper from Conrad Malik from a couple years ago in terms of what your paper should look like. Again, we're using MLA manuscript form. You can find the page numbering feature is in Google Docs. I'll show you that. So you're going to have to put it up in the header. So to do that, you go into Google Docs, and let me open up just any generic paper here. It's like a brainstorm or something. I don't know what this is. You click on the, let's see. It's not the paragraph button, sorry. You go to the plus button. You go to insert. You go to page number. You click on this one that's got the 1 and the 2 in the top right. And that's going to drop the page number in, and then you can tap up there, put your last name in a space. That's how you take care of that. And then to do the line spacing, you go into the paragraph menu. It'll go get it like that. And if you want to put it in Justified to make all the, everything kind of even at the margin, you can do that. That's pretty basic. And then a lot of you, just have no idea how to, I think, add paragraphs. So I'll show you in my cross-country journal here real quick. So to add a paragraph, all you do is you put your cursor, or not a paragraph, to add a tab. You put your cursor in the first line where you want to indent. You kick the whole thing over. You go to the second line, leave your cursor there, you hit return, and you kick the whole thing back over. So that's how you do those parts, which is pretty basic. Other than that, let me go back to my paper here. You should have in the top left, you should have your name, my name, the name of the class, and the day the paper's due, which is May 1st, 2020. You can see Conrad here has his citations, and so we're going to talk about how to include citations. You notice that they're going to go at the end of the sentence here, like the Squires and Anderson one. They're going to go at the end of the sentence before the period where the fact is used. So you can see here that he's paraphrasing a fact. You can see here that he has a table that came from the same source, so he's just putting the citation right after that chart. But really what we're looking for is if you go to the end of the paper, Conrad has a pretty extensive bibliography here. You can see that it's in alphabetical order by the first word of the entry here. So you can see he has that done well. The first line should be all the way to the margin while all subsequent lines are indented. You also can see that, he has certain sources. If they don't have an author last name, that's fine. You just start with the first words of the article title. You can see his whole work cited here. And then to cite it in the text, again, all you use is the first word. And so for this first source, it would be Cochrane. The second source would be Conover. The second source, if it's an article title, I'll usually use the first 2 to 3 words. The first 2 words here are critical issues. You would also preserve the quotation marks inside the parentheses because that's the way it was denoted in the work cited. It is that simple. So major mistakes that happen here would be if you have sources that are in this work cited but that aren't used in the paper, they should be taken out because they are not work cited. An even bigger issue, the 2 plagiarism issues would be, one, that you have information in your paper that is, used, but there's no entry in the work cited. That's really bad. That means that you plagiarized it. You didn't even put the in-text citation. But if you have the in-text citation, like here he has Reed 76, if there was no entry for Reed, that would also be plagiarism. You didn't put you didn't trace this to its source. You can see that he's using Reed's book here. Since he's using a book source, he's also using the page number, so that'd be Reed 76. You can also see this next one here where he says quoted in Reed 76. He's actually quoting, it's a quote of a quote. This is actually Karl Lauterbach who says this, if you look there. And so he's quoting somebody that Reed quoted. So he's making sure to attribute the quote directly to the actual source because Reed, the author, didn't say it. So he's doing that correctly. That would be the same as if you cite a study that the author cited. You would use CTD in Reed 76 if you're citing a citation. You can see this other, here's a quote, a direct quote from Reed 57 to 58, which is done well. It goes after the quotation, before the period at the end of the sentence. You can see, let's go up a little higher. He had a multi-page quote. You can see that, he's using Reed 1 or 2 because there's like an idea that spans across a couple pages of the book. He's paraphrasing it, and that's fine. If you paraphrase it, you have to cite it. If you quote it, you have to cite it. So both of those things are necessary. You can see this quote, this citation above it. It just says systemic lupus erythematosus. Again, there's no author, and he's just using the first word there, which is systemic. And if I would go to his works cited, we'd be able to look under S, and there's the source. Okay, that's the basics of citing. You see him here really deftly citing. He's paraphrasing a story from the book that spans 3 pages. Some of you, a couple papers I've seen that are quoting 2 and 3 page sections. That just absolutely cannot happen. You can't quote 3 pages in a row. You need to summarize. This is a good example of a summary citation. Rosenthal 11 to 14, there at the bottom, is summarizing 3 pages, which he has now reduced through paraphrase or summary into 1 paragraph. So those really long narrative sections, if you're taking them from elsewhere, find ways to reduce them. And, they'll be a little bit more effective that way. Other than that, the citing is pretty basic. I should be able to trace every single one of these citations directly. So this Squires and Anderson, I would want to go to the works cited, look under S. There's Squires, David and Chloe Anderson. So I should be able to trace those things before I even write, or before I even read your paper. I will trace every one of the citations. Some big no-nos would be if there are clearly, like, see how here on this page 2 he has the U.S. spends 17.1% of its GDP, or $9,000 per person. That's clearly a fact that Conrad took from someone else. And the fact that he took that from someone else means that it has to be cited. And if that goes uncited, that's a very clear plagiarism. The other real clear plagiarism is when there's a direct quote that isn't attributed or linked to a source. So those are the basics of the sourcing. Your paper should look exactly like this. I know some of you are incapable of being that fine about it, but this is something you worked really hard on for the whole semester, and it should have the presentation of a final project, like a business presentation. It definitely should be of publication quality. Conrad's here is a perfect example. I've also attached this paper to today's iTunes U post. So I hope you guys find this instructive. I'll throw out a couple other videos for you here as well.